Welcome to the Change. Today, I'm going to talk about heroes. Seems like they're few and far between these days. I, of course, had a lot of heroes growing up, but in my adolescence, there were people worth looking up to. I mean, I had Hulk Hogan to look up to. I was a Hulkamaniac when I was growing up. I lived and breathed WWF wrestling, WWE wrestling. It was called WWF back then. Um, Professional athletes were my heroes. I I pretended to be every 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 bottom of the ninth inning home run, every extra inning bases loaded home run. I've pretended to be Joe Carter. I've pretended to be Dennis Eckersley. I pretended to be Mitch Williams, the guy Joe Carter hit the home run off of. But that's a lot of information. Some people have no idea what I'm even talking about. My point is heroes. Today, there's not a lot of them. And not only our youth definitely need someone to look up to, but our adults need meaning and reason and dreams, hopes. People need to know to shoot for the stars. And there are things worth fighting for. There are things worth everything. Your family being one, your neighbor, love them or hate them. You got to have your neighbor's back. You have to. Your community, you've got to stand up for your community. Because if your community goes down the tubes, what will you be left with without a community? Even if you live on 1,000 acres with 1,000 cows and 1,000,000 chickens, you still need community. The people around you still have to have your back, and you still have to have theirs. Today I'm mentioning one guy. He's one of the founding fathers, Josiah Bartlett. He was born in 1729. He November 21st, 1729. So I think he's a Scorpio. Just missed Sagittarius. They say Sagittarius is the philosophical of the signs. I'm just saying, that's what they say. I don't know. I don't know much about Sagittarius, but that's what they say. Anyway, he was the son of a cobbler. So, of course, he didn't have a lot of money. So he didn't have a formal education. There was a doctor in town that he studied under, and that's what they did back then. You just went and worked and basically interned and learned the trade, and then the trade got passed on. So he opened up a practice. Where was his practice at? Um, Kingston, New Hampshire. He was a New Hampshire guy. Um, but he was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. See these guys? There was 56 guys that knew if they signed this declaration to declare themselves free of the crown, they knew that if they lost this fight, if they lost this attempt at freedom, if they lost, they would be tried for treason and hung. They knew it. They knew it. But they they wanted it that bad. They were that proud. They were that, you could say, egotistical. You could say stubborn. There's a lot of things you could say about them. A lot of things you could say. But they don't get the respect they deserve. They don't. We would all be mourning the Queen still if these men hadn't have stood up and signed that declaration. He was the second signer, of course, after John Hancock's this big of a signature he put on there. Um, there's a lot of debate about, because he's listed as one of the guys who got their house burned down. There's a bunch of them got their houses burned down. When the Crown's troops would come through, they would specifically target the signers. They had lists of people. They knew who signed the document. And they were to be captured at all cost and all their livestock killed, taken, all their lands tilled, their houses burned, their wives taken in custody. War was nasty back then. I mean, war's nasty today, and it will be in 1,000 years. War's nasty. People die, and people suffer. It's not war without death and suffering. They go hand in hand. Death and suffering do. Scary thoughts, the both of them. But yeah, he was 46 when he signed the Declaration. His house was burnt to the ground. They, but it said that it was before the signing. It was one of his neighbors burned it down, a Crown sympathizer, a loyalist to the Crown, whatever you want to call them, a sympathizer or a, because they were we were the rebellious. I say we because it is our United States of America. The men were brave, man. I don't know if people know enough about what kind of muster you would have had to have had to do such a thing, to declare independence from the crown. I mean, they signed a death ticket, a death warrant if they were to have lost. And if you were a betting man, if Las Vegas existed in 1776, if Las Vegas were around, the odds would have been 100 to 1. 100 to 1 to win for the United States to succeed. And they did. It was because of those brave dudes and everybody who fought. Everybody who fought. I don't think it was just the signing that did it. But these guys knew, like that, you literally put your name on a piece of paper saying, screw you to the crown. That's what they did. And they don't get talked about anymore. They get their names dragged through the mud because people want to tear down the American identity. They want to make America the bad guy when we're not. History's a strange thing. People need to know what happened. People make mistakes. This country's made mistakes. This country will make mistakes. This country will make a mistake tomorrow and next year and next decade. But Josiah Bartlett is a hero. He signed the Declaration of Independence, and not a lot of people know his name. Not a lot of people remember his name. 56 dudes. 56 dudes signed the Declaration. And I had never heard of Joseph Bartlett, even though I think it's the dude's name on the West Wing. So he got some kind of cred, even if it was 200 and some odd years later. He got some credit. He got before he died, he got a honorary doctorate from Dartmouth College, which is awesome. I mean, he was a practicing doctor for years. 3 sons, 7 grandsons, all went on to become doctors. Um, he started the New Hampshire Medical Society. Like, he did some great things. He was the first governor of, they called him the president of New Hampshire. I think that's how it was worded, the president of New Hampshire. But then it was basically the governor of New Hampshire. But then they changed the title over to the governor of New Hampshire. But he died in 1795, making him 65 years old. He wasn't murdered or anything like that. But he did lose his house. But the reason I'm shining a light on his name, and I'm going to continue to do so until I have given a shout out to Josiah Bartlett and the other 55 men who were brave enough, courageous enough, smart enough who stood up against the crown to give us this great experiment called the United States of America. This is the change. And I am tonight the silent screamer. Thank you.